title Exploring Climate Change Risks to Rice Production in Indonesia with CMIP.
Hi, good
Afternoon,
afternoon. In
everyone.
this video, I will
Welcome to
present
the
you our research
International
titled
Conference of
Exploring
Climate
Climate Change
Change,
Impacts to Rice Production
ICCC
in Indonesia with
2025. We
CMIP6.
are now at
This research
session
performed by
4,
Army Research.
Paralel 2. We are start to the first presentation entitled ASEAN Quo Vadis on Climate Change Issues.
Greetings everyone. We are from the Department of International Relations, Universitas 11 Maret, Indonesia. My name is Ilham and together with my partner Ali, we are going to present our research titled ASEAN Quo Vadis on Climate Change Issues. In this presentation, we will explore how ASEAN responds to the growing climate crisis. ASEAN is built on the value of unity, as reflected in its motto, one vision, one identity, and one caring and sharing community. This spirit comes from a shared cultural and environmental background, where most ASEAN people live closely with nature. But this shared way of life also brings shared challenges, such as climate change. Across ASEAN, the growing urgency of climate change is creating a powerful opportunity to act together. Collective action on climate change becomes not just important, but also necessary. At the same time, rising public awareness and youth activism are building momentum that can push ASEAN towards stronger and more united climate initiatives. Climate change has already affected all of the ASEAN community and has become a universal challenge for all ASEAN members. If ASEAN fails to act now, the cost will only grow higher in the future. Yet, before action can truly work, several underlying problems must first be addressed.
How is Quo Vadis ASEAN and climate change issues? We apply two main perspectives. First, constructivism, to see how ASEAN's climate responses should be shaped by shared norms and identity. Second, the idea of regional citizenship, emphasize collective responsibility to see environmental protection as a common duty across ASEAN. This research used a qualitative descriptive method to gain a comprehensive understanding of how ASEAN addresses climate change. Data were collected through library research involving the review of regional agreements, national policies, and academic publications.
There are three major problems that must first be addressed. First, an anthropocentric mindset within local communities where economics often outweighs environmental concern. Second, different national priorities among member states. And third, ASEAN's ineffective policy making process.
ASEAN must first recognize the complexity of local and national challenges that often limit regional effectiveness. However, only regional approach can truly ensure meaningful progress on climate change. ASEAN must shift toward a regional moral framework where environmental protection becomes a shared priority above national borders. Academically, it contributes to the discussion on regional environmental governance of ASEAN in addressing climate change. In terms of policy relevance, it provides analytical insight to reevaluate the current consensus-based norms and to consider more responsive mechanisms for regional environmental cooperation.
That concludes our presentation on ASEAN Quo Vadis on climate change issues. Thank you for your attention and your time. We truly hope this research can contribute to a better understanding of ASEAN's role in addressing the climate crisis. Once again, thank you and we look forward for your feedback.
For the next presentation session entitled Farmers' Adaptation Strategies to climate change across agricultural subsectors in Indonesia. If you have any questions regarding the previous presentation, please kindly write them in the chat box.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Indaibana, truly honored to be present there at the 11th International Conference on Climate Change 2025. This is collaborative research team from the University of Jember. The title is The Relationship Between Climate Change Adaptation Strategy and Cocoa Farming Productivity in Trenggalek, Indonesia. We believe our findings offer critical insights into climate resilience in agricultural communities. Indonesia's vital cocoa sector is collapsing due to extreme climate variability, especially El Nino drought and La Nina floods. This caused a 5.46% national production drop in 2022. Do you know this erratic climate directly translate into major farm losses? This negative climate impact pose a serious challenge for cocoa farmer in Indonesia. It is essential to mitigate this negative effect and maintain the viability of cocoa farming. This complex problem, the gap between the necessity of adaptation and its incomplete implementation, is what motivates our research. The study therefore aims to answer the three key questions. First, specific climate change adaptation strategies. Second, level of cocoa farming productivity, and the last, relationship between adaptation strategies and the level of cocoa farming productivity. So we survey all 111 members of the Tunggal Jaya farmer groups using a descriptive analytical method. We determine cocoa farming productivity by dividing output by land area, percent product moment correlation to statistically analyze, and there are seven forms of climate change adaptation implementation carried out by cocoa farmers in Indonesia, namely the first one, place making, rock making, until making, spraying botanical pesticides, increased using of organic fertilizer, pruning management, and ripening the cocoa forests. And do you know? The most common form of adaptation is rorak making. The least form of adaptation is spraying of botanical pesticides. Our assessment reveals three crucial points. First, the adaptation level of cocoa farmers in Indonesia categories as low, as the majority of farmers implement fewer than five of the seven available adaptation forms. And then the productivity into the medium category, and the last, relationship between the climate change adaptation strategy implemented by cocoa farmers and the productivity of cocoa farming in Indonesia indicates a strong correlation. So this key finding underscores that increasing the adoption of adaptation technique is an effective strategic pathway to boost cocoa productivity and strengthen farmers' resilience against the impact of climate change. That concludes our presentation. Thank you for your attention. We hope our finding will be beneficial. We welcome further discussion, and please feel free to reach out.
For the next presentation session entitled Reforming Indonesia's Agricultural Subsidies through the WTO Green Box, Legal Pathways for Trade, Environment and Climate Smart Agricultural. If you have any questions regarding the previous presentation, please kindly write them in the chat.
My name is Alfian Rinaya from the Faculty of Law, University of Indonesia. The title of my presentation is Reforming Indonesia Agricultural Subsidy through the WTO Green Box, a legal pathway for trade, environment, and climate smart agricultural. Indonesia is still reliant on chemical-based input subsidy. This approach is hinder our effort in climate change mitigation and adaptation in agricultural sector and create vulnerable food security. Therefore, this research aims to ensure how green box subsidy policy in Annex 2 can be elaborated and remain relevant without disrupting Indonesia agricultural sovereignty. The WTO Agreement on Agricultural provide the green box category, which consists of domestic support instrument considered to have minimal trade distortion effect and therefore not subject to limitation. This program consists of research, training, infrastructure, support to structural adjustment, domestic food aid, and general service. My analysis provide that the continued reliance on input subsidy creates significant long-term systematic risk. First, Indonesia's subsidy actually encourage the overuse of chemical. Second, the slow adaptation of climate-smart agricultural will make our farmers vulnerable to climate pressure. Lastly, the implementation of subsidy distribution in Indonesia is still inefficient. While Indonesia NDC mentioned the need for technology-based adaptation, however, management subsidy in Indonesia still does not address the challenge of climate change and CSA. We identify specific category consists of general service, environmental program, and structural adjustment assistance as the legal pathway to fund CSA without violating national agricultural security. This study will use a normative legal analysis approach, examining WTO document, particularly in the Agreement on Agriculture, and also analyzing the other domestic regulatory, such as Presidential Regulation and NDC document. The current Presidential Regulation number 6 still focus on chemical fertilizer. This policy contradict to NDC target. Legal solution we address under Green Box implementation is first, investment in research and training. Secondly, transforming commodity subsidy into conditional direct cash assistance. And lastly, we demand investment assistance for small-scale farmers to adopt basic CSA technology. This reform will result in fundamental difference in Indonesia agricultural governance. We shift from inefficient input support to sustainable based support, with providing direct fertilizer assistance such as digitally verified through platform like Kartu Tani, allow farmers to choose fertilizer that suit their specific soil and crop needs. This reform will provide three main contributions. First, contribution to national food sovereignty with the CSA system. Indonesia farmer will be more efficient. And secondly, strengthening contribution to global climate action. And lastly, contribution to international legal compliance. I acknowledge that some government assistance program offered by the WTO Green Box might be challenging for Indonesia as a developing country. However, with some adjustment, this could be key to aligning international trade with climate resilience and
For the next presentation session, entitled Identification of Institutional Characteristics and Actors Driving Proclaim. If you have any questions regarding the previous presentation, please kindly write them in the chat box.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, researchers and participants. My name is Karwidi Hapsari from the Agricultural Extension and Communication Study Program, Faculty of Agriculture, 11 Maret University, Indonesia. Today, I'm honored to present our study entitled Identification of Institutional Characteristic and Actor Driving Proclaim. The Indonesian government has launched the Climate Village program, known as Proclaim, as part of its national strategy to address climate change. By 2024, the government aims to establish 20,000 climate villages across the archipelago. However, only 10,113 villages has been verified so far. This shows that further intensive efforts are still required to achieve the national target. The success of Proclaim cannot rely solely on the governments. It is required to active participation of multiple stakeholders, including government agencies, the private sector, universities, community organizations, and local groups. Each of these parties play a strategic role. Collaboration among these actors is therefore the key to long-term program sustainability. This collaboration is essential not only for local sustainability, but also for Indonesia's contribution to global climate resilience. This research is valuable for formulating strategies that strengthen the sustainability and scalability of the Climate Village program across the country. The study focuses on Central Java Province, particularly Karanganyar Regency, which involves a diverse range of stakeholders. Our goal is to identify the institutional characteristic and actor driving Proclaim at the regional and village levels. Through the understanding, we aim to highlight how synergy among institutions can create a climate-resilient Indonesia and contribute to global environmental commitments. We employ a descriptive qualitative approach to explore the real dynamic of program implementation. Data were collected through in-depth interview, focus group discussion, document studies, and field observation. This group represents the policy implementation and community level of Proclaim. Our findings show that paternalistic culture still strongly shape the implementation of Proclaim. Leaders at every level, from the national to village, serve as the primary driver of action. This leadership structure helps coordinate and accelerate program execution, but it also means that community participation often grows because of top-down direction rather than from independent initiative. This participation is still institutionally driven rather than fully democratic. By analyzing this relationship, we found clear patterns of institutional interaction. The environmental agency acts as the policy designer, mentor, and supervisor, ensuring that Proclaim follow national guidelines. Village government and women farmers groups serve as local implementers, integrating Proclaim activities into village development plans and mobilizing citizen participation. Meanwhile, Proclaim cadres operate as field facilitators and communicators, translating policy into daily environmental actions. Together, these institutions form a collaborative and adaptive structure supporting sustainable climate governance. The study contributes in several ways. First, it maps the role and interaction among Proclaim institutions and actors from national to community levels. Second, it provides insight from the government to evaluate and strengthen Proclaim implementation through clearly institutional coordination. Finally, it encourages a shift from a top-down to a bottom-up approach, where communities are empowered as active leaders in climate adaptation and mitigation, not just as beneficiaries. To conclude, the success of Proclaim depends on strong leadership combined with community empowerment. Institutional synergy is crucial to transform Proclaim from a government program into a genuine social movement for environmental sustainability. Thank you for your kind attention. For further information, please contact us at email. I look forward to your question and discussion. Thank you.
For the next presentation session, entitled Analysis of the Sustainability of the Climate Village Program, Case Study of the Main Class. If you have any questions regarding the previous presentation, please kindly write them in the chat box.
Hello, today I want to present you my article with the title Sustainability Analysis of Climate Village Program, Case Study of the Main Class. I want to introduce myself. I'm from Faculty of Agriculture, 11 Mart University. Next is what is the problem? Even though many areas have achieved main class status in the Climate Village program, community motivation often declines afterward. Sustainability of Proclaim activity is not guaranteed due to fluctuating participation, limited coordination, and weak institutional capacity. Next is what are the opportunities? integration of social economy and environment dimension to ensure sustainability. Two is strong local government commit to policies, funding, and annual competition. Last is potential for empowerment through local heroes and community institutions. Why does it matter? Proclaim contribute to national goals for climate village adaptation and mitigation. It strengthens socio-economic resilience, support local development, and foster environmental awareness. Ensuring sustainability of proclaim means empowering community to be climate resilient in the long term. This study will focus on analyzing internal and external factors influencing the sustainability of proclaim in Surakarta. 2. Examines three key dimensions: social, economic, and environmental aspects of community participation. Last, this study will provide understanding of program dynamic, particularly factors that maintain or reduce motivation after award recognition. This study aimed to analyze the sustainability of the mind-class climate village program in Surakarta City. The analysis focused on identifying internal and external factors that influence community motivation to mind of discontinue proclaim activity. It also examined the interconnection between social, economic, and environmental dimensions that determine the continuity of community-based climate action. Furthermore, the study sought to formulate strategy to strengthen institutional capacity, regenerate environmental career, and ensure the long-term independence of program implementation at the local level. In this study, I found first in social aspect, high initial participation but declines after assessment, strong role of local heroes and collaboration. In economy aspect, household-based green economy like West Bank and organic fertilizer still limited in scale and reliant on external funding. Last, in environmental aspect, widespread use of biopower, inflating wells, and rainwater harvesting, awareness raising, but unfun.
Thank you so much for your attendance and participation. We will now have a 15-minute break. The next session is session 5, will begin at 6:05 p.m. Indonesia Western Time. So all participants, see you after the break.